Picture this, it's my birthday and my sister walks out to find a brand new Mercedes in the driveway. Everyone's clapping, phones flashing, and I'm sitting there holding socks. I'm Claire, the daughter who always gets told to be easy. That night I posted 3 photos with one line, "Best gift ever." Her smile froze and suddenly the whole family chat lit up. But that was only the beginning, because what I discovered next wasn't just about a car. It was about secrets, money, and how far favoritism can really go. What would you do if your own parents erased you like that? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear your story. The bow slid off her Mercedes like a silk ribbon announcing royalty. Everyone clapped as if it were the Super Bowl halftime show. Phones lifted, flashes blinked, and my sister squealed in the driveway while the silver car gleamed under the afternoon sun. I stood 2 feet away, clutching my own gift bag, cotton socks, wrapped in last year's tissue paper. I smiled anyway, because that's what you do when you're the daughter who's always expected to keep the peace. Neighbors peeked over the fence, curious about the commotion. Mom had orchestrated the reveal down to the second, waving her hand like a stage director as Dad jingled the keys and said, "For our star." He didn't mean me, he never does. My sister's hair fell perfectly on her shoulders, her makeup unbothered by the heat, and when she slid into the leather seat, she looked like she'd been training for this role all her life. The applause rose higher. My socks slid lower in the bag, a symbol of where I stood. I remembered another time they told me it was family first, when they borrowed my college savings to cover Ethan's business down payment. They promised it was temporary, a family decision, something we'd all benefit from later. That money never came back, but the language did. Family, loyalty, sacrifice. The script always sounded noble until you realized who was footing the bill. And now here I was again, expected to clap and swallow my own bitterness with sheet cake frosting. I walked back toward the folding table where lemonade sweated through plastic cups. My sister revved the engine and Dad beamed like a dealership commercial. "Smile for the picture, honey," Mom called out, her phone tilted to capture my reaction. I lifted the socks, held them chest high, and forced a grin so wide my cheeks hurt. The neighbors snapped photos, too. Later, those would appear on Facebook with captions like "So proud of our kids." And nobody would know what it felt like to be the kid holding socks next to a luxury car. Inside, I excused myself and opened Instagram. 3 photos. The socks draped over my lap, the bow crumpled on the grass, the side mirror of her car reflecting my face half cut. One caption, "Best gift ever." I hit post. The sarcasm wasn't obvious at first, but it didn't need to be. Anyone who knew me well would sense the bite. Anyone who didn't would assume I was the gracious sister, smiling through the imbalance. The likes rolled in. Cousins added heart emojis. Aunt Karen commented, "So humble," the word twisted. Humble means you accept less without complaint, you lower yourself to elevate others. Maybe she meant it as praise, but it felt like another directive. Stay small, stay quiet. My sister scrolled beside me, watching the screen like a hawk. Her smile twitched for the first time all day. She saw the double edge. By evening, the group chat lit up. Screenshots bounced back and forth. A cousin typed, "Claire's the sweetest. She never cares about gifts." Mom slid into my DMs with a single sentence, "Sweetheart, don't be petty." I stared at the message until the bubbles faded. If it wasn't petty, why did she sound nervous? Why did she feel the need to control the narrative before anyone else caught on? I tucked the socks back in the bag and carried them to my car. My sister's Mercedes purred next to me, brand new, flawless, insured by the same family that claimed they couldn't afford to reimburse my savings. I buckled my seatbelt, closed the door, and whispered to myself, "Petty? Maybe, or maybe it's the first breadcrumb." Because sometimes the smallest post is the loudest alarm, and I just pulled the fire handle. By the next morning, my socks had become a talking point. Not because anyone admired them, no one really did, but because in my family, gossip spreads faster than truth. Relatives had already formed opinions. Some said I was sweet for being low maintenance. Others joked I must have really meant it when I wrote "Best gift ever." I scrolled through the family group chat at the kitchen island, nursing lukewarm coffee, watching the narrative tilt without me even speaking. The group chat was always alive after big family moments. Aunt Karen predictably had the loudest voice. Claire is so easy to please, she typed with a smiling emoji. Some girls would have thrown a fit, but she's different. A few cousins chimed in with agreement. Screenshots of my post bounced between them, my socks angled like a punchline. I hadn't said a word, but apparently silence meant consent. Cousin Jenna had already taken it further. She'd screenshotted my caption and sent it into her side chat with, "See, Claire's the chill one. Megan deserves the spotlight, Claire doesn't even care." I only knew because Jenna slipped and included the wrong screenshot back into the main thread. She quickly deleted it, but I saw. Everyone saw. And suddenly, what I meant as sarcasm was being recycled as evidence that I didn't value myself. Gossip wasn't about accuracy, it was about speed, about who could define the story first. I set my phone down, took another sip of coffee, and noticed a stack of receipts scattered across the counter. Mom had always been careless with paperwork after events. She'd buy decorations, order catering trays, pick up last-minute gifts, and dump the receipts wherever there was space. I shuffled through them absent-mindedly until one line stopped me cold. Joint Fund Claire. The receipt was from the dealership. The down payment line was listed, then in parentheses, Joint Fund Claire. My name tied to the purchase of my sister's car. I stared at it, tracing the ink like it might disappear if I blinked too hard. This wasn't just favoritism, it was redistribution dressed up as family accounting. "Dad," I called out. He was by the fridge, fiddling with leftover cake. He turned, fork already in his mouth. "What's this?" I asked, holding up the slip. He chewed slowly. "Buying time. Receipts don't tell the whole story. It looks pretty clear to me." He sighed, set down the fork, and rubbed the bridge of his nose. "Let's not make a thing out of this, Claire. Complicated." Complicated was his word for anything that exposed imbalance. Complicated meant don't push, don't embarrass us, don't expect answers. He reached to take the receipt from me, but I slid my phone over it first, snapping a photo with a clean click. His face tightened, but he didn't stop me. Maybe he knew he couldn't. "Sweetheart," he said softly, like the word could erase what I just captured. "We help each other. That's how family works." The phrase cracked something in me. We help each other. The same words they'd used when they drained my savings for Ethan's business. It wasn't help if it only flowed one direction. It wasn't family if one child's contribution became another's celebration. I slipped the receipt into my pocket along with the photo. Aunt Karen's voice buzzed from the group chat again. New comments, new spins, more people shaping my story without me. But this time I held something tangible, something that didn't rely on opinions or screenshots. Gossip might be currency, but proof was capital. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't broke. I glanced back at my phone. The group chat scrolled endlessly, cousins resharing my socks, laughing emojis piling on. Mom hadn't weighed in yet. She was probably crafting the right spin, polishing the edges so no one saw the imbalance for what it was. My sister would smile for the next selfie, hair glossy, car shining, while I was still expected to nod along. But the photo of that receipt sat in my gallery now, waiting. A breadcrumb, maybe the smallest piece, but real. Harder to erase than a caption, harder to twist than a sarcastic line. And I could feel it in my chest. If this was petty, then I was ready to be petty. I was ready to be precise. I tucked the receipt deeper into my pocket. Dad busied himself with dishes, pretending none of this had happened. His shoulders slumped just slightly, the way they did whenever a crack formed in the family's perfect veneer. As I rinsed my cup and set it in the sink, the thought hit me like a bell ringing clear. Joint Fund. Why was my name tied to her keys? And for once, I didn't want the answer whispered in the group chat. I wanted it in writing. At the HVAC shop, they called Ethan the future. The words rang through the warehouse like gospel. Staff clapped as Dad raised a plastic cup of sparkling cider, his voice carrying the same rehearsed confidence he used with customers. To my son, the next generation, continuity matters. Continuity. That word had followed me my whole life. It wasn't about fairness, it was about keeping things seamless, unbroken, controlled. Continuity meant my brother stepping into Dad's office chair someday while the rest of us orbited around his importance. Continuity meant silence, so the family story stayed smooth even when the numbers didn't. The shop smelled of motor oil and cardboard boxes. Behind Dad hung a wall of framed photos, employee of the month smiling with greasy hands in company shirts. Ethan's photo was already there, front and center, teeth gleaming like he'd never worked a day in sweat. I stood with my phone out taking pictures of the toast, just like Mom motioned me to. Get a good angle of the two of them, she whispered. I had the role of family photographer, the reliable one, the invisible one who captured everyone else's milestones. Ethan smirked for the camera, lifting his cup like a politician on campaign. To the future, he repeated, soaking in the applause. Staff nodded dutifully. The HVAC guys had families, mortgages, bills. They knew where their loyalty had to land. I clicked the shutter, but inside my head the words repeated. The future, the future, the future. Where exactly did that leave me? After the noise settled, I slipped into Dad's office. The door creaked like it had secrets. The blinds were half open, dust motes hanging in the air. On the desk lay neat stacks of invoices, but in the corner I saw a manila folder labeled Trust Draft. My stomach tightened. Dad followed me in a minute later, closing the door gently. Nice photos, he said, patting my shoulder like I'd done something heroic. I put the phone down and faced him. Am I still in the trust the way we discussed? My voice came out even measured. He blinked. We're revisiting the language, small adjustments. Adjustments, my skin prickled. That word sounded harmless, like moving commas in a sentence, but I knew what it meant. Adjustments in this family always tilted in someone else's favor. I pressed. What kind of adjustments? He hesitated, glancing at the blinds as if the staff might overhear. His shoulders lifted, then sagged. Your aunt thinks percentages should reflect sweat equity. The phrase hit me like a wrench dropped on concrete. Sweat equity. As if the money I'd saved for years, the sacrifices I made, the nights I worked 2 jobs, that wasn't sweat. As if Ethan's photo ops and company shirts counted more than my drained bank account. I kept my face neutral though my chest burned. Sweat equity, I repeated slowly, tasting the words like acid. Dad cleared his throat. It's not finalized. Nothing's final. Don't overthink it. He was already moving toward the door, the conversation dismissed like a trivial complaint. I stayed behind, staring at the folder, my reflection in its glossy cover. Executor, trust, continuity. Words that had been thrown around so often they lost shape, but I knew exactly what they meant. I was being written out quietly, line by line. In the hallway, staff laughed at Ethan's joke. His voice carried, confident, already owning the space. Dad clapped him on the back, introducing him as the next chapter. They didn't see me in the doorway, holding my phone a little tighter, my jaw set. Continuity might matter to them, but equity mattered to me. Real equity, the kind measured in both sweat and truth. I stepped back into the office one more time, running my hand along the cold edge of the desk. If they thought adjustments would happen in silence, they didn't know me well enough. I had watched, I had listened, and now I had questions that couldn't be answered with clichés. Sweat equity, I thought. My savings had sweat too, and this time I wasn't letting that line fade into the background. Dad walked away, leaving his iPad breathing. The screen pulsed faintly in the office break room, an email glowing like a confession caught mid-sentence. The hum of the soda fridge filled the silence. I stood there with my coffee, eyes flicking to the door, then back to the device. Curiosity wasn't new. I'd grown up piecing together truths from overheard fragments, but this wasn't curiosity anymore. This was survival. I leaned closer. The subject line read, Trust Draft V3 Reduce Claire's Maintenance Clause. My name slotted between legal jargon like it was a negotiable detail. My stomach clenched. Maintenance clause, reduce. Words that told me I wasn't paranoid, I was being quietly erased. I scrolled with the edge of my finger, careful not to smudge the screen too obviously. The thread was long, back and forth between Dad and a lawyer I didn't recognize. Lines about aligning percentages with expectations and protecting continuity for Ethan stared back at me. My brother's name appeared more than mine ever did, cemented into a future I was being drafted out of. The attachment list caught my breath. We'll draft V3, PDF. Alongside it, a note from Dad, let's finalize this before Christmas. My pulse spiked. If this was version 3, then there had been versions 1 and 2. What had been chipped away between drafts? How many commas had turned into conditions? How many promises into percentages? The door creaked, and I nearly jumped. The secretary breezed in, heading straight to the fridge. Afternoon, she said, not even glancing at me. I smiled, casual, blocking the iPad with my elbow. She grabbed a soda, popped the can, and left, her heels clicking down the hallway. The hum returned, louder now, like a warning. I acted quickly. AirDrop open, my phone hovering close. A buzz confirmed the transfer, the PDF sliding quietly into my files. I snapped 2 photos of the email thread for backup, angling the screen so the reflection didn't show me shaking. The whole process took less than a minute, but it felt like hours. Every sound amplified, the fridge motor, footsteps echoing in the hall, the faint murmur of Dad's voice from the office. The iPad dimmed, and I tapped it once to keep it alive. Then I stepped back, heart racing, pretending to scroll my own phone. When Dad returned, carrying a folder of invoices, I was leaning against the counter, sipping coffee like nothing had happened. He glanced at the iPad, then at me. "Everything okay?" "Yeah," I said evenly, just waiting for the fridge to spit out something cold. He chuckled, oblivious, and set down the papers. "Small adjustments," he murmured to himself, flipping through sheets. I repeated the phrase silently, tasting the irony. Adjustments meant I disappeared first. Adjustments meant my name was the one reduced, not Ethan's. I slipped out of the room, my phone heavier in my pocket. The files were there, digital weight pressing against me with every step. Proof, hard proof, not just gossip or group chat spins, not just sarcastic captions or overheard hints. This was typed, time-stamped, attached, undeniable. In the hallway, laughter drifted from the main office where Ethan was holding court again. The future, they kept calling him. The word stabbed, but they didn't scare me anymore, because futures can be rewritten when receipts exist. I sat in my car. A few minutes later, the door closed. Silence wrapping around me. I opened the file. Pages of clauses and subclauses scrolled across the screen, language designed to obscure what it really meant, percentages. My name slashed in half, benefits reclassified as maintenance, inheritance rewritten to reward sweat equity, his sweat, not mine. But as my eyes scanned line after line, a strange calm spread over me. They had left the screen open. They had assumed I wouldn't look, wouldn't notice, wouldn't dare. But I had, and once you see, you can't unsee. I took another photo of the first page, then locked my phone. One copy was never enough. Driving away, the December sky hung gray over the strip mall across the street. Christmas decorations blinked on lampposts, cheery and fake. My sister's car would be parked in our driveway tonight, a shiny monument to imbalance. But in my pocket, I carried something shinier. A PDF that stripped the gloss and showed the gears beneath. As if this was version 3, what had been buried in version 1? And more importantly, what else were they planning before I caught on? Thanksgiving logistics arrived like subpoenas, non-negotiable, stamped with urgency and disguised as hospitality. Aunt Karen's texts blew up the family thread before the leftover Halloween candy was gone. "Dinner at my place. Everyone brings one dish. Please, no drama this year." The last line landed heavier than the turkey itself. Her house had always been the stage for polite war. Doilies on end tables, pumpkin-scented candles, and place cards arranged like chess pieces. She called it tradition. I called it strategy. Nothing accidental ever happened under her roof. Every chair placement was a message. When I walked in, the dining table was already set, napkins folded into triangles sharp enough to cut. A row of chairs stretched long, but my place card was way down at the end, sandwiched between the youngest cousins. The kids' table, though I was nearly 30. Ethan and Megan sat closer to the head, radiant in the glow of attention, their names written in gold ink. Mine was in black. "Be nice," Mom whispered as she passed by, adjusting the silverware like it mattered. Dad hovered near the fireplace, avoiding my eyes. Ethan poured himself wine with the air of entitlement while Megan scrolled her phone, angling for the best light from the chandelier. I kept my smile thin and let my gaze travel around the room. Mapping players. Dinner conversation started with safe topics: traffic, football, Aunt's new backsplash tiles. But like always, the undercurrent swelled. Karen loved inserting little landmines into her niceties. Halfway through the salad course, she leaned in and said, "Of course, drafts aren't final unless everyone agrees." The word draft hit me like static. My fork paused halfway to my mouth. Drafts, she didn't mean recipes. She didn't mean menus. She meant documents. Wills. Trusts, percentages. She said it casually, like commenting on pie flavors, but I caught the glint in her eyes. She knew more than she was letting on. Dad cleared his throat. Not dinner conversation, Karen. Karen shrugged, all innocence. I'm just saying nothing's set in stone until signatures are down. Mom smiled tightly. Let's focus on the food, shall we? But the slip had already landed. Drafts weren't final. Drafts plural. Which meant there had been more than one. Which meant the version I'd seen on Dad's iPad wasn't the whole story. I excused myself under the pretense of checking my phone and slipped into the hallway. My thumbs flew over the screen. Grandma, do you still have any old paperwork? The dots blinked for a long time before her reply came through. Yes, come tomorrow, bring a tote. I stared at the words, the turkey timer dinging faintly from the kitchen behind me. My pulse raced. Grandma had just confirmed what Karen hinted at. There was an older version, untouched by adjustments. Back at the table, dessert was being served, pumpkin pie sliding on plates. My chair at the end looked farther away than ever, like the distance between me and the head of the family was measured in more than just seats. Ethan clinked his glass with Dad's, basking in the toast. Megan snapped selfies with her slice of pie, her car keys glinting on the table like trophies. I smiled faintly, hiding my phone under the napkin. The message from Grandma burned like a beacon. Come tomorrow. Bring a tote. That tote wouldn't just carry papers, it could carry the truth. The kind that didn't get rewritten in drafts or erased with excuses. The safe clicked like a throat, clearing the truth. One turn, then another, and the dial's soft rasp gave way to a metal cough as the latch released. Afternoon light filtered through lace curtains across Grandma's den, laying pale rectangles over a cedar chest and a row of framed school photos. The room smelled like lemon oil and old paper. I stood very still, palms flat on my thighs, as if noise might change the combination. Fairness ages well, Grandma said, kneeling on the braided rug. It doesn't spoil in the dark. She lifted the safe door. Manila folders breathed out a dry whisper. Rubber bands, paper clips, tidy tabs in neat, fussy handwriting. She did everything the careful way, labels, dates, cross-references, like someone who believes memories deserve footnotes. I won't ask how you knew to keep it, I said. I didn't keep it for them, she said. I kept it for you. She drew out a folder marked Estate 2018 and set it on the cedar chest. Her hands were veined and steady. She didn't posture, didn't apologize, didn't blink. She just opened the folder and slid a stapled packet across the chest toward me. Last Will and Testament 2018. My name sat on the page where it always should have, not as an afterthought, not as a clause with conditions, but as a share. A real share. No soft language about maintenance or discretionary distributions. No asterisks disguised as kindness. Just percentages, clean and simple. I exhaled without meaning to. The air left me like I'd been holding it since the day the bow fell off my sister's Mercedes. Read, Grandma said, then we'll have tea. I read, my portion was there, clear as daylight. Ethan's too, Megan's, fair, proportional, unflattering to no one. The executor language named my father but included safeguards. Co-executor if conflict arose, independent accounting on request, an explicit line about equal access to information. And then below it, her signature in blue ink, witnessed, notarized everything real people do when they want reality to hold in court. You heard something, didn't you? I said. At some point. She eased back on her heels and sighed. Your mother called me last spring. She wanted to streamline. She said things were temporary. She said moving some funds around would help your sister qualify for something. Grandma's mouth flattened. Temporary is the most permanent word in this family. A pulse beat in my neck. She said temporary reallocation. She used those exact words. Grandma nodded, eyes bright and unsentimental. She spoke quickly. Justifications tend to hurry. I looked up from the will. Would you say that again if asked exactly like that? I would say it under oath. She didn't dramatize the phrase. She said it gently in the room like a piece of china. I swallowed. My phone felt heavy in my pocket. The PDFs and screenshots and little pieces of electricity that now formed a spine. Trust draft V3. The dealership line that read joint fund Claire. The email subject that carved me down to a maintenance clause. And here the counterweight, will 2018 a baseline, a before they'd call before. Grandma poured tea. We sat on the couch with cups balanced on saucers that clinked in a steady domestic rhythm. The ordinary sound steadied me. I wasn't plotting a scene or planning a spectacle, I was building a ledger. Column A promises, column B revisions, column C witnesses. Courts don't care about feelings, they care about paper and people who will stand beside that paper. I'm not trying to punish anyone, I said. I just want what was promised, and to stop being erased while I'm still standing here. You want the family to be as honest as the documents you sign, Grandma said. That is not punishment. She took a small gold envelope from the folder. Inside, a photocopy of her driver's license and a card from the notary who lives 3 doors down from her garden club. If you need a stamp, she said, she knows me. We sat in silence long enough for the tea to cool. Dust gleamed in the light like careful confetti. Outside, a delivery truck rattled past and faded. I need to ask. I tapped the will. Why did you keep this instead of giving it back to Dad? Because your father believes continuity means he decides, and I believe continuity means we all remember, she said. And because you were always told to be easy. Easy is the word people use when they want you to carry the heavy part. I laughed, short and unpretty. Socks are easy. Promises shouldn't be. She slid a plastic sleeve across the table. Put the copy here so it won't smudge. The original stays with me. I tucked the wool copy into the sleeve, then into my tote. The weight shifted, satisfying. Proof isn't loud. Proof is heavy. Grandma refreshed our tea and told me the date of the phone call with Mom, month, day, approximate time, what she was cooking while she took it. Not dramatic, but exact. The kind of detail that tethers memory to fact. Would you speak if needed? I asked again, softer. She touched my wrist. For fairness, yes. For spectacle, no. Don't turn this into a parade. Paper knows how to walk. I nodded. I won't make a scene. Scenes are for people who lack receipts, she said. You have receipts. I stood to leave. The sun had lowered, angling bars of light across the den. The safe stood open, patient. I felt like I should bow to it. At the door, Grandma pressed a small handwritten index card into my hand. On it, in her tidy script, fairness ages well. Underneath, a phone number and the words, call me first. I hugged her. She smelled like cedar and pawns. Thank you. Take the long way home, she said. Decide what you want before you ask for it. In the car, I set the tote on the passenger seat like a person. The wool copy slid against the plastic. A delicate thud. My phone woke with my face. The gallery shone back. Will draft V3. PDF email stills that cursed receipt. I added a new scan, will 2018, and labeled it clearly. Then I created a folder called Proof Kit and watched the pieces click into place. Paper doesn't love you back, but it also doesn't abandon you when a room gets loud. The sky bruised toward evening as I pulled onto the main road. My hands were steady on the wheel. I thought about Dad's small adjustments, about Aunt Karen's careful toasts, about Megan's keys glittering on linen. I thought about Ethan's photo on the office wall and the word they like more than any other, continuity. Continuity without consent is just a prettier word for taking. A stoplight held me at the corner near the grocery store. I stared at my reflection in the windshield, the tote's outline in the seat beside me. I wasn't looking for a fight. I was looking for a record. The light turned green. I drove the rest of the way in a clean, quiet line, signaling early, stopping fully, doing everything by the book. When I parked in front of my building, I sat for a long moment and listened to the engine tick cool. Then I opened my contacts, scrolled to Mom, and pressed the little gray microphone next to my phone icon. One party consent. One witness on paper. One copy in a sleeve. I didn't need to raise my voice. I only needed to press a button. The call rang. I drew a breath, steady as signatures. I hit record. Mom raised her glass. I raised my phone. The fireplace snapped like it had its own opinion about the evening. Gold light spread across the living room, catching on tinsel and framed school portraits, making everything look warmer than it felt. Christmas Eve in our family always arrived dressed like a commercial, matching stockings, coordinated sweaters, the kind of dessert table that suggested love could be baked. Relatives packed every chair and half the stairs. Laughter hung heavy, ready to smother anything inconvenient. Before dinner, Mom announced, I just want to toast our blessings. She turned her body slightly, angling the camera toward my sister. To hard work, to milestones, to people who make us proud. My name didn't land in the sentence. It never does. The omission slid across the room like a shadow, noticeable to anyone who knew where to look. A few heads turned to Megan, who practiced a bashful smile. Ethan adjusted his cuff and tried to look humble. Aunt Karen nodded approvingly, already composing a caption in her head. Grandma watched over the rim of her water glass, steady as a courthouse step. The speech went on: gratitude for family, gratitude for continuity, a little nod to Ethan for stepping up at the shop, a giggle about how Megan was finding her lane. I sat on the end of the sofa, hands folded, my phone face down on my thigh like a sleeping witness. Laughter stuck to the walls when Mom delivered her favorite line, "Let's avoid drama this year." People chuckled like it was a tradition they adored. "Don't make a scene, don't embarrass anyone, be gracious." "Claire," Mom turned at last, glass raised in my direction. "Thank you for helping with photos lately. You always make everyone look good." It sounded like appreciation. It felt like erasure. The room hummed with plates and cutlery. Someone slid the ham out of the oven, a timer beeped in the kitchen. I could have smiled and let dinner swallow the moment. I could have stayed safely invisible, collecting compliments on being easy. I had done that so many times I'd lost count. Instead, I tapped my phone awake and opened voice memos. The waveform from last week weighted like a sealed envelope. One party consent. Grandma's will copy in my tote back home. The airdropped draft in my files. The receipt photo labeled joint fund Claire. Paper before volume, proof before volume. "Mom," I said, calm and level, "I'd like to add something to the toast." A small silence fell, the kind that follows a clink gone wrong. Aunt Karen's smile tightened. Dad's eyes skated to the mantel clock. Grandma set down her glass quietly. I stood, not high and mighty, just tall enough to be heard. I pressed play. Mom's voice filled the living room, clear as a bell that had been waiting to ring. We moved Claire's funds to help qualify. The room dropped into a different season. Heat left the fireplace, air thinned. The word moved seemed to pull gravity into itself. Forks hovered. Someone's bracelet stopped jangling. On the recording, Mom's voice continued, brisk, efficient, certain. "It's temporary. We'll fix it after the holidays. Don't mention it to your grandmother." The silence that followed wasn't empty. It had shape. It turned every face toward Dad. He didn't speak first. Aunt Karen did, breathy and bright. "I'm sure there's context." "Context is for later," Grandma said. Not loud, not soft. "We just heard an admission." Dad's mouth opened, then closed like a door tested against wind. Mom's cheeks flushed a festive color that wasn't from the fireplace. Ethan stared at the flames as if they could fix this. Megan's phone went dark in her hand. "Sweetheart," Mom began, "playing that here is lawful," I said, still even. "Recorded in a one-party consent state. And relevant to the way I keep being erased in rooms where I'm present." I looked at Dad. "You told me there were small adjustments." He swallowed. In the reflection of the bay window, I could see the room doubled, the family, the tree, the expectation that I would sit down now and let the moment wash away. But the recording existed. The proof had entered the space. The script had to move. "I was going to fix it," Dad said at last. "After the holidays." "Temporary," I repeated, letting the words sit next to the tree skirt. "Like the last temporary you never untied." Aunt Karen reached for a laugh that didn't arrive. "Let's put this aside and eat," she said to the room, voice sugar-coated, eyes sharp with preservation. "This isn't the time." "It's exactly the time," Grandma said, hands folded, "because time is when people count on silence." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't list every receipt. I didn't mention the PDF or the will in my tote, or the notary who knew my grandmother by name. I didn't need to. The recording had done the heavy lift. It cut through the buttercream talk and landed us on the thing itself: money, movement, motive. Mom lowered her glass. "We helped your sister qualify for a better rate," she said, careful now, each word stepping on stones. "We intended to make you whole." "How?" I asked. "On paper or in wishful thinking?" Dad glanced toward the hallway like the right words might be stored with the coats. "We'll meet tomorrow," he said. "We'll go through the documents." "Numbers," I said, "and signatures." Something inside the room unspooled, the facade maybe, or the agreement we'd all pretended to have. People looked away, then back, trying to locate the safe answer. Megan touched the keys in her pocket and let her hand fall. Ethan took a breath that tried to be a sigh and turned into nothing. Grandma spoke last. "Eat while it's hot," she told the room as if the verdict had already been given. Then to me she added, "Bring your tote tomorrow." I sat down. The recording ended. My phone lay quiet, screen dimming. The wave formed a thin scar across the glass. Plates resumed clinking. The ham steamed. Someone whispered wow like a prayer or a warning. I picked up my fork. My hands were steady. I didn't need to look at Mom to know her smile had edges now. I didn't need to look at Dad to know his eyes had found a corner of the mantel to study. The scene had not been made, it had been measured. That was the difference. Tomorrow isn't a threat when you have paper. It's an appointment. I took a bite, swallowed, and passed the rolls down the table like a person who belongs at the table. Tomorrow, we talk numbers and signatures. Sun, lawn chairs, and the truth spread out like potluck. By noon, the backyard was a catalog photo. Folding tables under a pop-up canopy, plastic bowls of pasta salad sweating beside lemonade, paper name tags curling at the edges. The grill hissed, a cornhole board thunked in the distance. It looked friendly. It always does before the minutes start getting taken. Grandma sat near the shade with her hat and a glass of water, a witness without a robe. Aunt Karen busied herself with napkins, for once keeping her mouth shut. My sister hovered behind sunglasses. Ethan wore competence like a polo. Mom floated, arranging things that were already arranged. Dad pretended to check the propane. The notary from 3 doors down, Deb, arrived with a tote and a neutral smile. "Nice day," she said to no one in particular. Neutral is a color I've come to respect. I laid out the table the way I'd rehearsed, manila folders stacked, clips tidy, stickies serving as a map. Proof kit wasn't a metaphor anymore, it was an object. I invited everyone who needed to be there to sit, Dad at the end, Mom at his right, Ethan and Megan across, Grandma beside me. Deb set her stamp down like a paperweight. I kept my voice low, and even the microphone today was sunlight. "We'll do this like a ledger," I said. Left column, what happened. Right column, what we signed to fix it. I opened with the bank statements. The pages were boring on purpose. Dates, amounts, account numbers partially masked. I drew a straight line with my finger from a transfer out of my account to the dealership deposit 2 days later. "Align the dates," I said. "The down payment clears here. The car is released here. The receipt line calls it joint fund Claire. That's my money." Mom started with air. "We intended." "Intention isn't a deposit," I said. "Numbers are." Deb watched, eyes soft, pen ready. Ethan leaned back, but his jaw worked. Megan shifted her weight. The lawn chair creaked like a tell. "Next stack, we'll draft V3 beside will 2018. I placed them side by side, bright tabs marking the same sections. Shares, executor powers, maintenance clause. Draft V3 reduces me under language that assumes I'm unstable, I said. 2018 shows parity with safeguards. Draft V3 concentrates discretion with the executor, Dad without the co-executor backstop. That is bias you can print. Dad stared at the clauses as if they'd grown there by accident. Your aunt and the attorney said. Continuity, I finished for him. Without consent is theft with PR. He winced. Words hurt more when they rhyme. I set down the HR letter next, my title, salary band, the bonus memo. The maintenance story dies here, I said. Whatever narrative suggested I couldn't manage distributions was a story. This is data. Silence, only the sprinkler ticking the far fence. Grandma folded her hands. I told Claire what I heard, she said, voice level. Your mother used the phrase temporary reallocation. I wrote down the date. I'll repeat it to a judge if asked. Mom's face pinched. Mother, I raised you to keep receipts, Grandma said. You raised spins. I let the quiet hold. Then I slid forward a single page titled Terms, bullet points, short verbs. 1. Trust addendum. Restore my share to 2018 percentages. Reinstate co-executor or independent accountant review. 2. Repayment schedule. Total of transfers tied to the car down payment and associated costs. Repayment in 12 monthly installments, first due within 7 days. 3. Disclosure, written acknowledgement that funds were moved without my consent to facilitate the purchase. No admission of moral fault required, just the fact. 4. No retaliation clause, family business opportunities, holiday invitations, and communications will not be conditioned on my signing silence. 5. Execution, addendum prepared by independent counsel, notarized today if language accepted or within 14 days if counsel revises phrasing. Dad rubbed his temple. This is aggressive. It's proportionate, I said. Paper undoes paper. Ethan tried a softer angle. Look, we're family, we can work it out without all this ceremony. Ceremony is for weddings, I said. This is accounting. I tapped my phone and set it on the table, speaker pointed up. Counsel on, I said. Good afternoon, the lawyer's voice came through, clear, concise, hired for calm. I've reviewed the documents Claire sent. The path is standard, a trust amendment restoring prior percentages and an accompanying repayment agreement. You can notarize acknowledgement today and finalize the amendment language this week. Dad's eyes flicked to the notary. Deb nodded once. Like a metronome? I can notarize signatures acknowledging terms or identity today, she said. Final instruments when drafted. Mom tried one last spin. We meant to make you whole, sweetheart. Doing this in front of everyone is how we stop rewriting history later, I said. No ambush, no shouting, just sunlight. The lawyer continued. Mr. Collins, you remain executor, but safeguards are prudent where beneficiaries perceive uneven discretion. Co-review or independent accounting is common in closely held family assets. There it was, not a scolding, just structure. Dad let out the breath he'd been hoarding since Christmas Eve. Fine, he said. Addendum restoring 2018. Repayment in 12 installments. Independent accounting annually. He looked at me and for once not through me. First payment within a week. I nodded. Thank you. Deb slid the acknowledgement of terms across the table. Mom signed first, a stiff flourish. Dad signed with a patient hand that made me remember he used to teach me how to write mine. Ethan hesitated, then scrawled a witness line. Megan signed because everyone else had, and the silence made her itchy. Deb stamped each page. The thud of the seal felt like a door finally finding its frame. No one cheered, that was the mercy of it. The grill hissed on. Somewhere behind the garage, a kid shrieked at a bee and then laughed because he wasn't stung. I gathered the pages into the folder the way a person gathers clean dishes, careful, ordinary. I didn't look triumphant. I felt level. The ledger balanced. Not in my favor, not against theirs, just back to where the paper said it was supposed to be before the edits crept in. Grandma patted my hand. Paper walks, she said. You kept it from running away. Aunt Karen brought over a tray of watermelon like she'd been doing that instead of listening. Hot day, she murmured. Neutral is contagious. Ethan cleared his throat. We good? He asked, performing casual. We're signed, I said. We'll see about good. Dad stood, rubbed the back of his neck and looked out over the fence at nothing. I'll wire the first payment Friday, he said. He meant it this time. The stamp had made meaning the only option. I put everything back in my tote and zipped it shut. The zipper's sound felt final in a way words never do. Paper is easy. Will they honor it? Truth doesn't stay in one backyard. It travels with dessert. By Monday, the cul-de-sac had tasted the reunion's watermelon and the aftertaste was facts. Lawn mowers droned. Dogs tugged leashes. Neighbors waved like always, but their eyes lingered a beat longer, soft with the kind of curiosity that carries accountability. I didn't perform. I returned waves, watered my porch fern, and let the day do what days do when paper has finally spoken. Deb, the notary, posted a single sentence in the HOA forum. Available for notarizations this week. Congrats to those completing family paperwork. No names, no details, but everyone understood it meant somebody recently had put ink where their mouth had been. Beneath her post, a neighbor wrote, "Sunlight's healthy." It gathered quiet likes. Even the silent ones knew which way the wind now moved. My caption, "Best gift ever," aged like a warning label. Back then it masked the I see this, and I'm not going to forget. I didn't correct anyone. I didn't need to. The record corrected itself. Cousin Jenna tried to shove the river backwards. She posted a story, a collage of smiling faces under the pop-up canopy, a boomerang of clinking cups, a caption about how family always works it out. Then she slid in a second frame that irked me. Some people love drama, but we choose grace. The sentence looked innocent until you saw the dodge. Grace without truth is perfume over smoke. I sent her a DM. Please stop implying I made drama. We signed terms. That's not drama, that's responsibility. She replied with a shrug emoji. Then she pushed a comment under Deb's HOA post about how notarizations are so extra. I didn't bite. Instead, I tapped my proof kit folder and attached two things she couldn't screenshot into Candy. The acknowledgement of terms, names redacted but stamps visible, and the bank statement alignment page with account numbers masked, dates bolded. I added one line, fax travel without makeup. Seen, no reply. 10 minutes later, I refreshed and watched as Jenna quietly deleted her comments. The algorithm, like most crowds, prefers receipts to insinuations. Dad texted early afternoon, wire scheduled by 5 p.m. today, confirmation to follow. The words were clipped, sincere, unadorned. I stared at the screen, feeling an old ache tug at a newer steadiness. I typed back, thank you, please keep counsel CC'd. Then I slipped the phone into my pocket and went back to trimming the fern. Practical gestures keep adrenaline from curdling. At 4:52 p.m., my bank app pinged. The number blinked on the screen, first installment received. Not a promise, not a plan, money. I took a breath. I didn't know I'd been rationing since Christmas Eve. Paper had become currency. Currency had become quiet. The lawyer's email arrived moments later with the draft amendment attached and a tidy bulleted summary. Restored percentages mirroring 2018. Co-review on annual accounting. Language clarifying that any prior temporary reallocations required written consent. The tone was clinical, the kind of calm that makes you realize how loud your head has been. Please review, she wrote, and propose edits by Thursday. We can schedule signatures Friday afternoon. I forwarded the message to Dad and Mom. I included Grandma as a courtesy and Deb because a stamp is faster when everyone plans for it. Within minutes, Deb replied, Friday 4:06 p.m., I'll be home, bring ID. Grandma reacted with a single heart, the digital version of the nod she gives when something lands where it belongs. That evening I sat on the porch with iced tea and listened to the neighborhood replay the story in gentler register. Two women on a walk paused near the end of my steps. One said, good for her. The other said, good for all of them. I didn't turn. I stared at the sun burning behind the maples and let their words reach me like mail sent to the right address. Mom texted at 7:13, proud of you for handling things maturely. The ellipsis did more work than the compliment, but I took what was true in it. She followed with, let's keep this private now. I answered, it's already quieter than it could have been. She sent a heart. Then a photo from an old Christmas where I'm holding a mixing bowl and Megan's holding the ornament, both of us smiling like identical daughters. I saved it. Memory doesn't need to be proof to be useful. HOA chatter surfaced one more ripple. A neighbor who never speaks posted, my dad borrowed from me once and forgot. Took years to make right. Glad to see folks do better. No tags, truth without spectacle. I liked the post and put my phone face down. When the wire cleared, I opened a fresh spreadsheet titled Repayment Ledger. Date, amount, method, confirmation number, balance remaining. The cells aligned in neat columns, soothing in their refusal to argue. I attached the file to the email thread with counsel and wrote, logged installment 1/12. Please confirm on your end. Dad replied in under a minute, confirmed. 2 syllables, more weight than any of his speeches. I fell asleep before midnight and didn't dream of keys or captions. I dreamed of a blank lease form, clean lines, and an empty box where my name would go. In the morning, I brewed coffee and opened 3 tabs: apartment listings, DMV appointments, renters insurance. Freedom is paperwork too. Around lunch, Jenna texted, no hard feelings. I answered, no feelings at all, just boundaries. She sent a thumbs up and to her credit didn't screenshot it. By late afternoon, Deb rang my doorbell on her way home. Just passing your street, she said, handing me a business card with her stamp embossed in the corner. You did that well. I did it on paper, I said. Same thing when you're lucky, she said and waved. I updated the proof kit one last time, bank ping screenshot filed, HOA post archived as context, mom's text labeled tone shift. My gallery no longer felt like a museum of slights, it felt like an audit trail with sunsets in between. Quiet wins stacked up like folded laundry, useful, ordinary mine. At 5:05 p.m., the lawyer confirmed Friday's window and attached a clean PDF named Trust Addendum Final Draft. The subject line ended with a period, not an exclamation point. I smiled. Periods are underrated. I closed my laptop and stared at the slice of sky between rooftops. I could feel the next decision forming, simple and large: call the landlord, ask about availability, schedule a viewing. Paper had walked, money had moved, the ripple had become direction. One more signature, then I signed my own lease. I bought a reliable car, with my name alone on the title. The pen scratched across the DMV form, the clerk stamped the page, and for the first time in years I felt my name anchored to something no one could reallocate, reduce, or temporarily move. The keys were plain without a bow, but when they hit my palm I heard a sound louder than any birthday cheer. Socks had started this story. Cotton, forgettable, wrapped as filler beside a Mercedes. Now those socks felt like a marker of what I would never accept again. Easy gifts, easy erasures, easy labels. I stood in the parking lot and let the new car's engine hum steady beneath me, nothing flashy but mine. The legal loop closed in a fluorescent conference room 2 days later. The lawyer laid the trust addendum on the table, language clean and final. Dad signed first, his hand heavy but deliberate. Mom followed, lips tight but unshaking. I signed last. Initials in each corner, full signature across the line that restored me to the page. Deb's notary stamp landed with its familiar thud, sealing more than ink. It sealed the months of whispers into something the court could hold. The repayment ledger ticked its boxes, first installment already cleared, schedule stapled to the addendum. 12 months, one transfer at a time. I didn't celebrate. I didn't gloat. I just felt the scales even out, quiet as a kitchen clock. Grandma called that evening. "You kept it steady," she said. "That's harder than shouting." Her voice was soft, proud without ceremony. "Paper walks, you walked with it." "Thank you," I said, "for keeping the first copy. For knowing you'd need it," she replied. Mom texted late, "Family dinners will feel different this year. I hope you still come." I typed back, "I'll come when it's healthy. I'll sit where respect has a chair." She sent a heart, then nothing else. In my new apartment, boxes stacked like promises, I unwrapped one mug and set it on the counter. A kitchen doesn't need to be full to be mine. The silence was comfortable, not empty. I brewed coffee the next morning and drank it leaning against the window, sunlight crossing the laminate floor. No one watched, no one needed to. I opened Instagram once more. Not a caption this time, not sarcasm, not bait for the family grapevine. Just a photo, my hand, palm open. New keys resting there, no bow, no spin. I posted it without words. Sometimes absence says more than any line could. The notifications buzzed, but I set the phone down. I didn't need to watch. I'd written my ending already. Next time they raise a glass, I'll choose if I'm there. I set the new keys on my kitchen counter. The same palm that once held socks now holding proof of my own name on paper. Justice didn't roar. It signed, stamped, and transferred, quiet but firm. Families can bend the word love until it looks like control, but real fairness is measured by respect and boundaries. Peace came not from winning louder, but from knowing the ledger finally matched the truth. If the story touches you, please like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment. Type 1 if you sympathize, type 2 if you see room for improvement.